There we go. Welcome, Stavy.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I am absolutely delighted to be here today to talk with you about a topic that is so close to my heart. So, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's our pleasure to have you in one of our weekly coffee breaks. Today we will talk about employee engagement, the keys to engagement. So, what is needed to have people engaged? What are the benefits? What happens if you don't do it, etc. And you're an expert in that field. You're an organizational psychologist. Maybe
That's correct.
explain. Yeah, maybe explain a little bit to the people watching what you're doing and where your drive is coming from.
Absolutely. So, my name is Stavy. I'm an organizational psychologist and the founder of Work Unlocked. I am extremely passionate about building psychologically healthy workplaces, which I suppose is deeply rooted in my upbringing and experiencing firsthand the negative impact of grueling work conditions and poor leadership can have on people's happiness. So I kind of made it my life's purpose to transform how we work and help build high performance and engaging workplaces where employees can and want to bring their full selves to work. So everything that has to do with employee happiness, workplace happiness is my absolute passion and expertise.
Yeah, and is that mainly from the employee side, or is that from also the employer side?
It is mainly from the organizational side.
Okay.
It's focused on how can we as an organization provide a better place for employees to really bring their full selves to work rather than focusing only on the individual. The individual can only do so much, right? If the workplace it just keeps taking and pushing, then it will never work. So I work mainly with business leaders, human resources professionals to develop employee happiness programs that maximize performance, productivity, and of course, engagement by translating psychological principles into practical strategies. And this is what kind of makes Work Unlocked so special: the fact that every program we develop is supported by psychological research rather than focusing or indulging in the latest trends or nice to haves. We really address the problem at its roots by looking at employees' needs and wants.
Okay, that's good. Then we have an expert in the house. So why should organizations focus on employee engagement? What are the benefits for an organization?
Wow, why soon? Why shouldn't they? Right? An organization can only be as good as its people are, and there is a lot of research that has indicated benefits both for the individual and the organization. For example, when it comes to the individual, when an organization provides a great place to work, the individual can experience more fulfillment, which then leads to higher productivity, higher performance, less absenteeism, higher retention rates. There was even a study that was done across, I think, 8,000 business units across 39 companies, which showed a direct association even between employee engagement and business units by indicating that higher employee engagement leads to higher profits, turnovers, and overall employee and organizational success.
Yeah.
So it's very critical. And if you look at the numbers of engaged employees across the world, you will see that it's imperative that companies do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen the numbers. I've seen the recent study of Gallup. If that is what you're referring to,
Mhm.
13% of people in Europe are engaged. Worldwide, 23%. Why
Mm-hmm.
is that?
22.
Where is that? Where is that low number coming from?
This is, Jim, I swear to you, the $1 million question. So, as you said, 23% of employees are engaged and thriving. 59% of them are disengaged, what people nowadays call quiet quitting, and 18% of them are actively disengaged, which is called loud quitting. So what does that mean? It shows us that 3/4 of of all employees across the world are either disengaged or actively disengaged. Now, the problem is that many look at those numbers and they think to themselves, we need more free pizza, or we need more sofas in the office, or even think, oh, the entire population is lazy. Nobody wants to work, or everybody wants to become a TikToker. What I see when I look at those numbers is a completely different story. What it tells me is that 18% of world's employees are either already or leading towards burnout. They are exhausted. If we look at what it means to be actively disengaged, it shows high levels of exhaustion, cynicism, low performance, low confidence, and even gossiping. And then the other 59% when it comes to disengagement, it's basically employees that decided to minimize their input to match the output, which basically shows, disengagement is that I've given so much for so long, but what I've been taking back in forms of pay or recognition or supportive leadership and so on doesn't match my input. So in order to prevent myself from experiencing burnout, I need to make some adjustments. So 3/4 of the employees are tired, they're exhausted, they feel that, what they bring to the table doesn't match what the organizations give back, for one side. And then on the other side, what it tells me is that organizations have either done too little or not the right things when it comes to employee engagement. And from what I've seen from my experience working with companies across the world, a reason for that is that many companies confuse employee engagement with other similar concepts, such as job satisfaction or job involvement. And they design programs that increase satisfaction, but that will get you only that. It will give you satisfied employees, but it will not give you engaged employees. So there is this, what the numbers tell me is that we need to do more of the right things and stop blaming the employees on, not showing enough resilience or not being engaged, and ask ourselves, how can we work towards improving those numbers by doing the right things? What do my employees need?
Yeah. Now, what I see in some companies, and that let's call it the more traditional thinking companies, they still think that engagement, employee well-being, that it's kind of fluffy and it's like far away from reality. How can you show them that it's more than that, and that there's also like a lot of benefits for them in case they would spend more attention to it?
Right. So I think first things first, the most important thing is that an organization needs to be, and especially top leaders need to be open to approaching employee engagement as a business necessity. If they need to take convincing that their employees need to feel good in order to sell your products, then I think we need to take a lot of steps back and talk about, leadership and what it means to lead. So if you look at the numbers, whether it's Gallup or any other type of research, there is enough evidence that shows the direct impact between an engaged and a healthy employee and an employee that isn't. I think the problem for most leaders is that they think that they have implemented programs already, that they're doing things, but they're not seeing the return on investment. And somehow I think they have lost hope that it works. But I think that's the reason, going back to the low numbers, I think they haven't seen such a return on their investment because they haven't done the right things, right? So for example, if you think that employee engagement is a synonym of job satisfaction, then what you will do is basically introduce programs that have nice perks, nice benefits, nice to haves, or maybe you will focus only on competitive pay. Those are all characteristics where most companies focus on. But again, those activities increase only satisfaction. A satisfied employee is not an engaged employee. And maybe, what I would do is start by defining employee engagement. What does it mean? What drives engagement? And then talk about how we can build resources that move us towards this level of engagement.
Yeah. So maybe you tell us what
Maybe I
what
should.
is the,
So,
what is the yeah
you know,
what is the formula for engagement? What is needed to get engagement? And maybe there's like some elements that everybody needs,
mhm.
or maybe the classic ABC, and then maybe they are like different depending on the generation, whatever. Like,
Right.
please,
So
yeah.
the definition that I like to use sees employee engagement as a positive, fulfilling, work-related state of mind that is characterized by vigor, dedication, and absorption. And what does that mean? Is that an engaged employee exhibits high levels of vigor, which is a behavioral component, and is characterized by high levels of energy, mental resilience, and the willingness to invest effort and persistence in one's work, even in the face of difficulties. An engaged employee also is dedicated, which is an emotional component. And what this means is it refers to high levels of involvement while experiencing significance, enthusiasm, and pride in one's work. And lastly, when it comes to absorption, which is a cognitive component, it refers to experiencing high levels of attention, concentration, and experience immersing oneself so much in their work that time flies by so quickly and you have difficulties detaching yourself from work. So the definition I just gave you approaches an engaged employee as someone that is fully immersed, fully present, energetic. They experience enthusiasm and significance and engage in their work for its own sake and not for external rewards. So they are fully present. They're there, they experience flow, and then, they give their best to the company because they are also personally involved in that.
Yeah.
So this is kind of, when I think of an engaged employee, this is the goal that I like to set and what we strive for to achieve. Not a satisfied or an involved person, a person that is fully present and fully engaged.
Yeah.
Now, what research also tells us is that there is that the way we feel about our job can be seen as a spectrum, with employee engagement on the one end of the spectrum and burnout on the other end of the spectrum. So basically, the type of engaged employee that I just described is the positive antithesis of a burned out employee, right? Someone that experiences exhaustion, cynicism, exactly the same characteristics one-to-one as an actively disengaged employee, right? So this is a spectrum. Now, in order to move into the engaged end of the spectrum towards vigor, dedication, and absorption, there is an interesting dynamic between burnout and engagement that is caused by the interplay of job demands and job resources. Job demands push us towards the burnout end of the spectrum. Typical job demands are, for example, tight deadlines, high workload, doing the work of 2 or 3 people. Job resources, they push us more towards vigor, dedication, and absorption, and they help us buffer out the effect of the job demands. Okay, so when you look at things that employees are missing nowadays, and like, for example, supportive leadership, feedback, goal setting, recognition, work-life balance, autonomy, and it can go on and on and on. Those are the things that you need to not only move towards vigor, dedication, and absorption, but also buffer out the negative effect of demands. Maybe you have seen also in Gallup's report, people just keep saying, the reason that I feel disengaged is because my manager is not supportive. I don't receive feedback. I cannot work flexibly. All the factors describe either the presence of high demands or the lack of job resources. Mm-hmm. So there are different job resources that are mandatory or necessary, as you said. Some are like common, nice necessities to increase vigor, dedication, and absorption. But what I always recommend is that doing a proper audit and sending out an employee engagement survey that asks the right questions, not the satisfaction questions or the culture questions, but the engagement questions to uncover specific demands and resources in each company. But when it comes to just some typical resources that we can use, when it comes to vigor, for example, as we said, vigor is high levels of energy, then we are thinking then some common factors that maximize vigor are practicing psychological detachment, for example, introducing a policy in the company that basically doesn't allow people to work outside work hours. Don't send emails during after work, during your weekends, during your holidays, without having this being used against you. Take regular breaks, and also lots of physical activity. That's why some companies offer sports programs. What worked very nicely with a client of mine was introducing walking meetings. That's where, instead of having your typical meeting in the conference room, kind of melting in the chair or even the nice sofa you may have, you go outside for a walk and just, get this physical exercise while also being present because, you're moving. Obviously, also work-life balance, as I said, everything that you need to kind of detach, replenish your resources by distancing yourself and then coming back fresh and new. And also, the aromas, having this sound of music, this is exactly what also increases vigor. That's super, super important. And then when it comes to dedication, what always helps is helping employees internalize the importance of a company's product or service and the social impact that your work has on the world, on the customer, or even your colleagues. Feeling competent, which is, by using regular feedbacks, goal setting, and which kind of sounds simple, but are not easy, as we have seen. And when it comes to absorption, absorption is about this proactive attention. And one practice that works very, very good is practicing mindfulness, learning how to be present in the moment and kind of shutting off the external noise. But also for that, the company needs to stop introducing meetings every other hour. Nobody can fully immerse themselves in their work and experience flow when you have a meeting or a call that could have been an email every an hour or so. And lastly, making sure that everyone's skills match the challenge when it comes to absorption. Don't be wishful that the employee will cope or find a way, or they're going to watch a YouTube video or learn how to do it. That it keeps stretching the person, right? It requires for them more resources, internal resources to cope with this challenge, which then depletes the resources. So offer training and learning opportunities in advance and make sure that when you assign tasks, you do that based on employees' strengths and not on, as I said, wishful thinking.
Yeah. Now, you talk about engagement. When I would be like a plant manager, I would ask, okay, how do you measure engagement? So that's the first thing, because it's not like a button, or how do you measure that? And what do you need to put in? You gave already several inputs. Where do you start? Where do you start? So that's a double question. How do you measure engagement? How much time does it take to see the first results? And how do you start? Imagine you have a group of people who are really, not being enthusiastic at all. So how do you make them do that? To get how do you make them do the first step?
Okay. I hope I don't forget any of the questions. If I do, please ask me again. So how do I measure engagement? As I said, I would introduce an employee engagement survey that asks the right questions that measure vigor, dedication, and absorption. And this gives you already insights into, those questions into what do I need to do, in which areas that contribute to vigor do I need to work on, and what areas am I good at, so I can use this strength to buffer out the effects of the demands. So having a survey that measures those dimensions is the starting point. then companies, and depending on your industry and your goals, then you may want to introduce also other metrics. That's really, there is a lot of flexibility depending on your needs and what you wish to take away, right? It doesn't.
Stop. Because what I see then, the moment that you start doing these surveys, one thing is essential, that's trust.
Trust.
So when people,
Yes.
when people don't trust the survey, when they don't trust like the leaders, then they give an answer. Like,
Why would they bother?
yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
gonna take my time. I did that already. Nobody cared. So I'm gonna move on with my work because I have so much to do and I want to get out of work soon. Exactly. So then you need to start by rallying the top level management. Everything starts from above. Senior leaders set the tone and role model behaviors that then are being cascaded and duplicated across the entire chain. Okay, so there is this ghosts of the past, I would like to call what you just referred to. This happened in the past. Now I'm not even, gonna, because people have this experience already and it's just around, they haunt you, right? So rallying top level management and putting a communication in place where personally the senior leaders take responsibility of what has happened and explain why this is an organizational necessity and what is going to happen helps to reset the tone and signal to employees that we are taking a different direction. We recognize the mistakes that we made in the past, and this is what we're doing right now in the program that we are launching in order to improve and become a better organization for you, right? So it starts from top level management, and you don't want just their buy-in. You need their active involvement. They need to be present. They need to be hosting meetings. They need to be hosting talks. They need to be right there, listening to people and taking charge so that line managers do the same, right? So it's not the responsibility of human resources or the employee. It's an entire organizational practice that needs to be introduced. So once you do that, then you need also to partner with employee representatives. Many times employees are left out of these programs thinking that the organization knows what they need or thinking that they don't need their input, or maybe they forget. But selecting a group of employees to be involved in this project, it helps to get their buy-in, get their active involvement. Then they act as ambassadors, spreading the message and converting those, people that are more, lacking trust to kind of convince themselves that, you need to be part of it. I'm also part of this project, and it seems that it's changing now. So take the moment, participate in our survey, and help us make a change. If you need anything else, let me know as the employee representative, and I'll give it forward to human resources or business leaders. And honestly, employees tend to have a very good idea of what is not working well, and they have, very good input that you need to listen to. So once you have all that, then you need to roll out the survey, and then absolutely necessary, analyze the results quickly, not in a couple of months, but it can be done within 2 weeks, right? Analyzing those results, and then communicate what came out and what are the next steps that you're going to take in order to address those issues. Again, if you want to implement successful action plans, then you need to again involve employees and the line managers. Don't go as human resources professional, tell them you need to do this, right? And now you're doing it, and now somehow your engagement will be increased. Work with them collaboratively and discuss the results, and then come up with ideas together so that everybody kind of co-owns it, right? And then just make sure that when you implement the action plans, which really depends on the size of the organization. One of your questions was, how long does it take? It really depends on the size. With some startups, I was able to, launch the survey and get leaders buy-in within like 6 weeks. And then you have another 2 weeks to analyze the results, and then a couple of months to launch the action plans, and then relaunch the survey every 4 to 6 months by comparing the same metrics, right? You need to compare the same metrics to get results, and then repeat this again and again and again. It's a cycle that needs to keep repeating. Many companies approach engagement as a one-off initiative or with some booster shots. Here's a nice perk for you. Here's another tool that you can use to send nice texts to your colleagues. That's not how it works, right? If you follow those steps that I just listed, I think you're on a very good path to seeing better results.
Yeah. And I always say, like, engagement is determined by the gap that is there between the employer and the employee. So that means what do you get and what do you expect, and how big is the difference? Like in each relation, it determines if you stay in it or if you look for something for something else. Now that seems to become more and more difficult. The younger the generations, the bigger the gap seems to be. What's your advice there? Like, do you see the same things, that the younger the generation, in fact, they stay only in average 2 years in a company because that gap, that's my explanation, because that gap is like bigger than, like, for example, with older generations, they can still live with the fact how, because they are used to it. The younger generation seem even like to speed up the process of, companies paying attention to well-being. Do you have the same experience?
I've definitely seen it. Now it's even the trend that you stay in the company for 2 years and then you move. You always have something new, right? This always on culture, overachievers. I need to have a lengthy CV. I need to do this and that. I think there are a couple of parameters here. We talked about the gap, and I agree with you. It's a reciprocal relationship. It's an exchange. I give something, you give me back in return. And the thing is that the newer generations, the context and the environment that we live in gives them more opportunities to do something about that gap. If we look at, our parents, for example, even the fact of home office, discussing home office and flexible work would be unthinkable, right? It wasn't the environment, the context, the way that everybody perceived work, or the opportunities that everybody had were different. But nowadays, people have the opportunity to actually voice their concerns and find a different employer if that doesn't work, right? Like more options, internalization, globalization, it helps, it gives them, or working from home, right? If I live in Frankfurt and then I can find a job in the US, then, it's the sky is the limit, right? Why would I stay with your company when I can have another 100 jobs lined up for me within, a couple of months? But I would also say that there is a lot of that's being discussed about the generation. And, of course, they're different. But again, they live in a different environment. If you look at 20-year-olds living in Germany, or 20-year-olds living in Somalia, or 20-year-olds living in Argentina, there's going to be 3 different 20-year-olds, right? So the environment plays a big, big role. But I think it's important that, when we talk about generations, the way that I look at it is that at the end of the day, we're all people, we're all human, and we have very, very similar psychological needs. So if you make sure that even if you're an international company with lots of cultures, lots of people everywhere, if you focus on fulfilling their basic psychological needs and really, giving them what they need and want, not what could have been nice, then you will be able to have a much better and higher impact across the board, regardless of the age or, heritage or race and so on. So that's where I like to focus.
Yeah. A lot of wisdom, a lot of experience coming from Frankfurt. A last advice for the people watching?
It's never too late to get started and increase employee engagement. You can do it if you know what to do. It's not that difficult, right? Just if you are a human resources professional, a business leader, a line manager, you have a responsibility to help your people and provide a better environment for them. It's not just up to the people. We all are responsible to making a positive change. And as I said, it could take as early as 6 weeks. If you know what you're doing, it's not that difficult. So let's do it. Let's create a better world for us. And I hope next time we talk, we can talk about higher percentages of employee engagement. Over 50. I want over 50% of actively engaged and thriving employees, to say the least.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your enthusiasm, and
Thank you, Jim. Thank you so much for having me. Bye.
We talk soon.
Yes, thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.